Welcome into another exciting edition of Locked On 76ers. Keith Pompey, Marc Farzetta. What is with this bug going around the 76ers locker room? VJ Edgecombe, the latest to get bit. We'll talk about what it all means on this edition of Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And we do thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now the number one sports podcast network out there. And this particular episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Yeah, that's right. FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets for the rest of the regular season and postseason at FanDuel.com. Keith Pompey, your 76ers beat writer at Inquirer.com. Philly Sports Talker over here, Marc Farzetta. Great to have you along for this ride, where we're going to talk about this injury bug that just keeps on biting players in the Sixers locker room, Keith. Joel Embiid, though, all of a sudden probable to go up against the Nets. We'll also talk about whether or not the Nets have actually figured out how to become a decent basketball team. They haven't lost back-to-back games in 3 weeks. And Gershon Yabusele, available all of a sudden from the Knicks. Talk about all that and more in this edition of the show. So, Keith, let's start with this. I wake up, sir, to your tweet, to your report. Well, I went to bed last night with your tweet of Joel Embiid being probable, which is obviously good. You want to see him play. And then I wake up to VJ Edgecombe, illness, questionable for tonight against the Brooklyn Nets. Where are we at right now with VJ?
You know, it's still questionable. Now, here's the thing, because news actually came out at around 9 o'clock that he was questionable. And just going to tell you this, if you notice, typically on game day, I have a different background because I'm at the arena, Xfinity Mobile. Well, you know what? I was getting ready to hop in the car, getting ready to drive to Philly and get set up so we could do the podcast. And shoot around was canceled at that time.
Oh,
so when you look at that, you got Quentin Grimes questionable with an illness, VJ Edgecombe questionable with an illness, Don Barlow questionable with an illness. So right now in Joel, they got illness, right knee, but I don't know. They've been saying illness for a while. But my thing is, it's kind of sort of like there's an injury. I mean, there's a bug going around the team, since Tyrese Maxey had the flu. And I think that a lot of these guys are catching it. So, that's something to be a little cautious of or something to pay attention to see how guys respond. Because, right now we're talking about VJ Edgecombe and Don Barlow are two starters, and they'll probably – even if they play, they're going to be less than 100%. So, it's something to pay attention to. And I think it's smart for the Sixers to cancel shoot around because right now these guys need to rest and recover.
Yeah, get these guys away from one another, Keith. They're just giving each other this sickness now. Okay, what's the fallout then? I know some people have been clamoring for Quentin Grimes to be on the bench or come off the bench while Jared McCain works his way into the starting lineup for a game or two, or I don't know. Does Jared McCain then enter the starting five if you don't have VJ Edgecombe available, if you don't have Quentin Grimes available?
I mean, I think if you don't have either one of them available, yeah, you got to go with him, right? But then we're also going to see a heavy dose of Kyle Lowry and
Eric Gordon.
Eric Gordon, so that's the one thing you're going to see a lot of that. But yeah, there'll be in the I could see. Well, let's say if Don Barlow doesn't go, wow, they're going to be depleted. So if Don Barlow doesn't go and Grimes and Edgecombe don't go, what you're going to see is a starting lineup most likely of Tyrese Maxey, Jared McCain, Paul George, Jabari Walker, and Joel Embiid, unless they want Paul George to be the power forward, and then you have Walker coming off the bench for the reserve role. But I think they'll probably go with Walker, to start in place of Barlow.
Yeah, so here's the thing about the Nets tonight. The Nets, I saw that they beat the Raptors. I'm like, oh, let me see how the Nets have been doing. And I'm like, oh, 8 wins all of a sudden? That was quick. They had like 2, what feels like 20 minutes ago, you know? They haven't lost back-to-back games since the end of November. I know it's only 3 weeks, and they had 1 long layoff. The Sixers had 2 long layoffs. So in total, it's 8 games that they haven't lost back-to-back games. But we're talking about a team where everyone was looking at as a bottom feeder. Then all of a sudden, they haven't lost back-to-back games in 3+ weeks now, and they're just coming off a big win, a 15-point win over the Raptors all of a sudden. So have the Nets cracked some code all of a sudden with this game, especially with the Sixers not having a full roster? Is this going to be a game where the Nets might give the Sixers a little bit of a run for their money?
I think it could be. If the Sixers don't have a full roster, I think it is going to be a little bit more competitive than the other two were, right? I think so. And the thing is, they have a rookie. His name is Edgar Demon, and I hope I didn't pronounce the last name wrong because but at the same time, he started 18 of their 25 games. He's averaging 9 points, 3.4 assists. But here's the thing about him: he can shoot the rock, and he has the most 3-pointers and 5th most assists through 25 career games by a rookie in franchise history, right? So he's been playing well. And when you look at it, Terrence Mann is a guy who the 76ers tried to trade for, years ago. It didn't work out, but he's a good player. Nick Claxton has always been a thorn in Joel Embiid's thigh. But then you hear like the one guy is Michael Porter Jr., who was injured the last time they played. Now, the first time they played, Kelly Oubre shut him down really bad. But he's averaging 25.6 points, and his career high against the Sixers is 17 with 7.2 rebounds. So he's a guy that's really going to try to do what he can against the Sixers. But again, I don't know how much I want to believe all this, because when we talk about their wins, right? So they beat the Bulls. The Bulls have been on the tailspin. They beat the Pelicans, who are one of the worst teams in the league. They beat the Bucks, and we watched the Bucks play twice, so we know about the Bucks. The Raptors, that was one where you look at it and you say to yourself, yo, what's going on with Toronto?
Yeah, right.
They'll lose that one. But aside from that, those other ones, and then they beat the Hornets too. So, they beat some bad teams, but they're one of the worst teams in the league. So they are showing some improvement.
Okay. Yeah, that's the other thing is when I look at a team like the Nets, I look at a team that finds ways to lose games. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden they're finding ways to win games. And I'm like, I don't like this. I don't like this when it's coupled with all of a sudden they're playing. Look, the fact that they haven't lost back-to-back games, the fact that that's even a bar for them shows you that they're not that good a basketball team. So it's not like I'm sitting here terrified of the Nets. But you couple that with the idea of the Sixers potentially being on a short roster tonight. And, yeah, Kyle Lowry getting more minutes, Eric Gordon getting more minutes, all that. You couple that together and you add it together, and it doesn't equal out to, oh, Sixers got this handily tonight. What it could equal is another optimistic, another inspiring game for Joel Embiid if he does, in fact, play tonight as he's probable. We'll talk about that when we return. This is Locked On 76ers and the Locked On Sixers YouTube channel. Let me tell you right now about FanDuel. Hope you guys are having a great time with the great people of FanDuel, especially getting in on the NBA and the NFL regular season as seeding comes more into focus and the postseason is just around the corner in the National Football League. NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're actually reacting in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as all the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is the best. When the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, defense tightens up, or momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads, money lines, adjust instantly on FanDuel. Player props update as players heat up. You can bet the next touchdown score, the drive result, totals, and so much more on FanDuel. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. And also this holiday season, let's not forget about the Everydayer Club. Hope you guys are taking advantage of this right now. And always, thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. And thank you for making Locked On Sports Network the #1 podcast sports network out there. And if you haven't already, go check out the Everydayer Club. You get access to ad-free audio feed on Locked On 76ers, also compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other major podcast applications. Also, invite to members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of this show. So make sure you guys check it out. Check out LockedOn76ers.supercast.com. That's LockedOn76ers.supercast.com for the Everydayer Club. So what are we looking at tonight, Keith? Joel Embiid probable going up against a team that is not going to pose a huge threat to Joel Embiid. Now, when we factor in any concern of the Nets playing better and the Sixers playing without a full roster, could this equal out to another huge game from Joel, Hans, and Embiid?
I mean, it could, but the thing about it is, if I'm Joel Embiid, I'm have to be motivated tonight, because the last time I played last season, I played against the Knicks, and I was horrible. I mean, Nick Claxton and who Joel and Nick seem to be adversaries on the basketball court. They just embarrassed Joel. It was like arguably one of his worst games that I've ever seen him play. So if I'm him, I'm motivated. But I do think that Nick Claxton is better than some of the guys that I've seen Joel struggle to defend this season. Right now, he's not like, he doesn't have a really great skill set, but he's active and he's athletic. And I think that, this could be a pretty good matchup between the two. Now, if Joel comes to play like the old Joel, he should destroy him. But they've always gone at it. So I don't see Joel, and I could be wrong, but I don't see Joel going for like a season high 40. You know what I mean? I don't I do think that, the one thing that could help him out is, now we're talking about these other guys who may not start, 2 starters, and Barlow and VJ Edgecombe, but the big 3 are all going to play. Maxi's going to play, Embiid's going to play, and Paul George is going to play. So I think that we probably won't see Joel like dominate the ball and do some things. Or I think the Sixers will hope they don't see that, but at the same time, it's one of those things where I do think that if Maxey is cooking and if Paul George is getting shots and then next thing you know, Jared McCain starts knocking down threes, that's going to loosen things up for Embiid to be able to get some easy buckets.
Mm-hmm. I want to go back, by the way, to something you said in the opening segment. You said we were talking about the illness, the flu. Is that what has that come out? Was it the flu, just kind of, or is it the flu currently going around?
Well, when we asked Maxie, somebody said the flu. You know what I mean? So they were talking about the flu bug was going out, right. Around, and that's what's going on. So I'm assuming, if he had it, the next thing you know, Embiid got sick, this and that. I think it's one of those things where in the locker room. And I'm gonna be honest with you, last week I had it too, But it was one of those things where, and it's crazy because, I was still able to go to work, still able to do certain things. But whenever like I tried to work out or I did stuff like that, I would get like bad headaches. And then in addition to that, I just felt extremely weak. So that's the difference from when you're playing ball. Like I know Maxie was talking about how weak he felt, like he couldn't do anything, this and that. And to be honest, that's how I felt. So I think I got it from being around the guys on the team. Now I'm cool now, but last week, ooh, bruh, I was messed up before.
I would have never known.
Yeah,
I would have never. You're a warrior, Keith. I would have never known. You powered through, man.
Yeah, it's a Philly thing. You know how we do.
you never texted me and be like, "Hey, man, I'm questionable for tomorrow with an illness." You just powered through.
You're like, if you what, I can hear you now. If you can't get your tail up and sit in that chair for 30 minutes, What's wrong with you? But yeah, so I was feeling weak, man. I was. I mean, so I'm cool now.
Fair enough. All right. Now, the other thing with Embiid, and to revisit this from yesterday, when you asked Nick Nurse about Joel Embiid's illness, and then you asked about any potential setback, he talked about an illness, and then all of a sudden, for the first time during this short stretch here where Joel Embiid hasn't played, not playing for 3 weeks, like we talked about in November, but he referenced Joel Embiid having knee soreness. And it was the first time anyone acknowledged any more soreness since he was shut down for 22 days, essentially. And it wasn't about the illness. It was about knee soreness. How much, if you had to, I don't know, take your best educated guess, your hypothesis here, what would it be that held Joel Embiid out more? Was it the illness or was it knee soreness?
The knee. If I had to take my guess, it was the knee. Because, I mean, my thing is, now, again, everybody's situation is different. But I do know when we went to New York for shoot-around and Joel was listed as out, he walked in with the team.
Right.
And he sat down. Yeah. Remember I told you, he sat down.
Yep.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't active and everything, but he was listed as illness. And then all of a sudden, after shoot around, you saw the knee soreness on there, right? So it was kind of one of those things where, it was like, I think it's the knee soreness more so than anything else. Because, I mean, Maxey wasn't around the team at all. He wasn't. And then not only that, I mean, the next night, Joel walked into the arena with his son. And, he like you see the video of him lifting his son up so his son could dunk the ball and all this and that. So, if you're sick like today, if that's more than the knee, then you wouldn't think that he would be doing all those things, in my opinion. Certainly.
Yeah. More concerned with Joel. As we talked about yesterday also, the fact that, and that leads me, what you just said there about being more concerned about the knee more so than an illness, is the other thing that just concerns me about Joel Embiid, and it makes me think that he has to be more of an NFL player than an NBA player, meaning, hey, once a week, maybe twice a week, you actually see him go out there and let it rip. Up until, of course, the postseason rolls around, which, as we talked about yesterday also, it looks like the 76ers right now at this point are a team that is headed to the postseason. It makes me concerned about how the Sixers handle him, about how he really handles himself, because even if we go back to the ESPN article in the summer where he was taking accountability for his own recovery and his own health, it's really on Joel Embiid to make sure that he is ready to go come season's end for some kind of postseason push or some kind of even playoff run that the 76ers could be going on here, considering the pleasant surprise the start of the season has been with them already 5 games over 500. So for me, I look at this and I say, how much will Joel Embiid stay on top of this recovery and try to not push himself to the point of every time he hits, I'll say the full go button, he ends up having to shut it down for a week or 2 or 3 as the season carries on.
Yeah. I mean, that's the tough spot right then and there, because like you look at it, right, and you say, okay, well, you look at it right now and they play today, right? So we're talking about as the season goes on, and you're saying, okay, well, if you play today, you can't really play against. If you play today, you assume you can't really play against the Bulls, but that's not true because they got 2 days in between. So he could play today. He could possibly play against the Bulls, right? Which is in 2 days in between. But you probably won't play him against the Oklahoma City Thunder, right? Which is 2 days after that. But then he'll play against Memphis, right? And then he'll play again against the New York Knicks, right? So in a way, you're looking at it and you're saying, like, okay, I want to see you go up against OKC, against those towers. Memphis is okay, but then, he maybe, let me see, if he plays Memphis, no, he probably won't play Dallas and play against the Knicks. But then if he plays against the Knicks, now I know he played within 2 days in between games when they played like right before going into the little break they had, right? But if he plays against the Knicks and they consider that taking 2 days off in between games, he's not going to play against Nikola Jokic on January the 5th. But he'll play against the Washington Wizards on that Wednesday. So it's kind of like it's tough, man. Like I know you're talking about it's tough if they keep that schedule.
Yeah. So I mean, I wanted. It's an odd thing because obviously everyone wants to see an Embiid Joker type of matchup, but then I think about it with Joel Embiid's status. It's like I don't want. I don't know. There's the double-edged sword. It feels like where I want to see that matchup. I want him to have that measuring stick game to see. Hey, how can Joel Embiid play now against Nikola Jokic versus how he used to play against him? And do I even want him to try to push himself to that limit, knowing if the first 20-some game, first 27 games of the season are any indication, once he hits full go, he's got to be shut down for a little bit after that. So do I want him to do that? Do I want him to push himself to that limit? That's the double-edged sword that it used to be a no-brainer. Like, oh, I want to see that. And then all of a sudden now it's just like, maybe not. Maybe not play a game where you're going to have to hit the full go button.
Maybe not. Here's the thing. So, like, if we're going to be real, there's 3 games that over these 2 weeks, well, actually 4. So you could say the Atlanta game, the Knicks game, the Oklahoma City game, the Knicks again, and then Denver. So it's actually 4 teams. He played against Atlanta, but then those other games, he could possibly play against the Knicks on the 3rd. But you want to see also, I mean, the marquee games are OKC. Test yourself. Let's see what you can do against them. Denver, you want to see that. The problem with the NBA is you have the haves and you have the elite team. You have some teams battling for the play-in tournament teams, and then you have a bunch of teams that just straight suck, right? And is like watching people play against the teams that straight suck. Like that doesn't really give you. I mean, it gives you confidence because you say you did this and you did that, but at the end of the day, it really doesn't really matter, man. Like VJ Edgecombe got props, and when I wrote about him, I did a story in Sunday's paper, and I know that they had a game on Friday and Saturday, but I highlighted more of what he did against the Knicks than what he did against the Dallas Mavericks. And don't get me wrong, the Dallas Mavericks are, they got Cooper Flag and stuff like that, but the brothers shut down Jalen Brunson, all-star. He took over a quarter. So to me, these are the games where people remember you for. Like they don't remember you for dominating the Washington Wizards. They don't remember you for beating the New Orleans Pelicans, the Brooklyn Nets. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like
absolutely.
What did you do against OKC? What did you do against your nemesis and the Joker? What did you do at the Garden? Right? So it's just. I don't know. It's tough, man. It's just tough. It's tough.
I hear you. I hear you. Also, some news we'll get into here about a former 76er that some people were a little heartbroken over when he didn't come back to the 76ers over the summer. We'll talk about that when we return. New report out of New York. Talk about that on this edition of Locked On 76ers when we come back. Right now, it's time to tell you about Robinhood. Robinhood, ladies and gentlemen. You guys got to take advantage of all they have to offer right now, especially when Robinhood is talking about how nobody knows your money goals better than you. Robinhood puts you in control of your money with tools that work as hard as you do. Locking in on every opening, beating your PR, beating it again. Channel that drive into your money. Robinhood puts you in control of your money. You can trade stocks, ETFs, options, futures, and crypto, all on one platform. You can now build and execute your own trades from a desktop with Robinhood Legends advanced tools, or take advantage of the new Robinhood Strategies with a tailored portfolio managed by a team of experts. You can expect more from yourself. Expect more from your money. Get started today at Robinhood.com/yourmoney. That's Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Your money, your move. Robinhood. So I take a gander, Keith, at Sportsnet New York, and all of a sudden, do my eyes deceive me? The New York Knickerbockers are open to the idea of trading Gershon Yabusele, former 76ers, ahead of the NBA trade deadline. What? Yeah. We just saw him, of course, play for the Knicks. He's making $5.5 million this season. I know a lot of people. He also has a club option for next year. I know a lot of people wanted him to stay in Philadelphia. Would you still, first off, how legit do you think this is? And second, is there a spot for him on the 76ers?
I think it's legit because he's not playing at all. And then he got like a rare appearance against the Sixers that game. Maybe let's showcase them to think maybe that they're missing something.
He hit a three, I believe. Yeah,
he hit a three, but the problem was, don't get me wrong, I was a huge Yabu fan. I felt like, Yabu was I was like, man, why are you guys getting rid of him? Like, this is a guy you need to keep, right? The problem is that right now you look at Yabu and you say, he can't fit in with the Knicks. If you're the 76ers, you're saying if you trade him, but who you going to trade him for, right? And then my thing is, when you look at Don Barlow and you look at Jabari Walker, these are two guys who kind of fit the mold. Like, they're gritty guys. They play some defense. I mean, Walker shut down Cooper Flagg in the fourth quarter, right? You see how Barlow is able to play off of people, get blocked, get dunked, and stuff like that.
Run the floor.
Run the floor. So right now they are like better fits than Yabusele is right now.
I agree.
So with that being said, I think you got to find out ways to be able to convert both of their contracts, right? And then sign them through like, long-term deals, whatever. You got to focus on that, not focus on let me trade in one of these guys and bringing in Yabu. Like, I think that Yabu was a great fit, but as we both agree, these two guys fit perfectly with the way that this team is set up this season.
When I saw the story, I was like, I know some people are going to want to talk about this. And then I was like, the Sixers actually did a really good job of replacing him. I think they upgraded. I didn't expect to say that about Jabari Walker. I certainly didn't expect to say that about Don Barlow. And that's exactly what they've done. Plus, you also talk about the Sixers running the floor and the up-tempo pace that they're so good at. I'm good. I know some people might reach for it and go, oh, Yabusele's available. Well, first off, what are you going to give up to get him? Because he's not a free agent. This would be a trade. There's nothing really there that I'd be willing to part with for Yabusele. If you're talking about he all of a sudden becomes a free agent, they cut him, whatever, yeah, then maybe. But even then, I think they're pretty solid. For what Yabusele gave you last year and what the Sixers have now, I feel like you have upgraded since this decision was made not to bring him back. You know what? Unpopular thing to say, but credit Nick Nurse, credit Daryl Morey. They knew what they had coming up, and they decided to go with that instead. It's one thing you could say, not many, but one thing you could say about, Sixers made a good move there in that regard. Hey, look, we're going to be back with you guys tomorrow. We're going to react to this game against the Nets, Sixers and Nets tonight. See if Joel Embiid does go in this game. See if VJ Edgecombe can kick the bug and get back on the court tonight. If not, you're going to be seeing maybe a little bit more Jared McCain tonight. So we'll get into that tomorrow as well on a Christmas Eve edition of Locked On 76ers. His name is Keith Pompey. My name is Marc Barzetta. We appreciate you guys being along for this ride. Also, don't forget about the Everydayer Club where you guys can get Locked On 76ers ad-free. Last-minute holiday gift. Maybe you get somebody Locked On 76ers Everydayer Club. All you got to do is go to lockedon76ers.supercast.com and you can maybe buy the gift for yourself or maybe even transfer the membership to whoever you need to buy a gift for. That 76ers fan in your life. How about that? Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Keith Pompey, Marc Farzetta. Like and subscribe. Locked on 76ers. Back with you guys tomorrow. See you then.